So we're here on a beautiful Sunday afternoon in Southern California. Temperature is 85 degrees in March. Nothing wrong with that. And we're headed up to Las Vegas from San Diego this afternoon. As you can see, we got a long delay ahead of us here on I-15 heading up through Temecula. And the purpose of this video is to show you what kind of gas mileage the 2021 F150 Powerboost Hybrid gets in heavy traffic, like stop and go type traffic. And so we will reset the MPGs and you can just see what happens. Okay, so it's at 0. And obviously we're going downhill at this particular point, so you know, we're not burning any gas. The hybrid system has the engine switched off and it's doing nothing but coasting and doing a little bit of regen braking. We have the cruise control set at 30. And so if we want to go faster than that, we just kind of give it a little bit of throttle. You know, if traffic starts moving. And then when you get off the throttle, it slowly brings the speed down. And then you start to come up and close up with the traffic, and it gets on the brakes to slow the vehicle more than the electric motor can. But for the most part, you know, when you're downhill and in traffic, all it's going to do is coast. If you need to accelerate a little bit like we did just now, it'll use the electric motor to accelerate it. Notice that the transmission is shifting gears. You know, it's got us in 4th gear right now. And as we slow down and close up with the traffic, it's downshifting to 3rd gear. And down to 2nd and down to 1st. Now that we've come to a complete stop. We've got it in lane keeping mode. And you can see it's giving itself a badge for doing a good job with the braking. We've got it in lane keeping mode, and that means that that blue halo that you see there around the vehicle, that means that the truck is doing the driving. We're holding onto the wheel because it's stupid to ever let go of the wheel. But we don't, you know, if you notice, well, you don't really notice, but the truck is driving itself. It's doing all the accelerating and the braking and the steering in terms of staying within the lane. Again, typical Sunday afternoon in Southern California. You can't really tell why the hell everybody's out on the road, but they are. It's not like there was just a game or anything. It's not like it's a afternoon, you know, commute. It's just a Sunday afternoon and everybody decided to get on I-15 and head north. And that's fine. We're not in a rush. We got 4 hours to go to get to Las Vegas. So it just accelerated up to 25, 30. You know, it's keeping a reasonable distance behind the vehicle in front of it. And actually, that's one of the downfalls of the hybrid system. If traffic was thicker and people were kind of getting agitated and aggravated and starting to cut each other off, the hybrid system here couldn't do that good a job because it wants to keep an interval. You know, it's probably 3 to 4 car lengths behind the vehicle that's in front of it. And so you see what just happened. Somebody just cut in because we had too much of a gap. But the hybrid system wants there to be a gap so that it can very gradually accelerate and very gradually slow down. You can adjust the gap just by hitting this button right here. And look what happens when you hit the button. So we're at like 2 car lengths. It can close it up to 1, and then it backs it off all the way to 4. So we'll set it at 1, and you can see the difference it makes. It tries a lot harder to keep that gap closed between us and the vehicle in front of us. But even so, there's still a gap you could easily fit inside if you were trying to cut us off. So, you know, if you think there's too much of a gap, you can obviously get on the throttle. But the problem is, again, the braking is a little more abrupt and the acceleration is a little more abrupt because it's got to work harder to keep that interval tightened or closed up. between us and the vehicle ahead of us. So we just set it, you know, we hit this button here. We set it for 2, whatever 2 means, you know, maybe 2 seconds, 2 car lengths, whatever. And if we think we're getting too far behind, no big deal. You get on the throttle and you can close up the gap. If you think somebody's gonna wanna jump in and cut us off, no big deal. The mileage isn't really all that meaningful at this point because we've gone 1.3 miles, of which 1.2 are electric. And you see our MPGs of 119 or whatever. Again, not very meaningful. Once we get, you know, 4 or 5 or 6 miles in, you'll see a more realistic mileage. We got traffic on the side here trying to merge in, so we will switch lanes so we don't have to be a part of that fight. As all that traffic merges in. And so when you're changing lanes with lane keeping active, all that happens, unlike something like a Tesla, which will change lanes for you, when you're changing lanes with the forward lane keeping system, all you do is you just put the blinker on and watch what happens. You see that halo go away? And now it comes back. When you turn the blinker on to change lanes, the halo goes away, and that means that lane keeping is off. And so it will give control of the steering wheel back to you. And then you make your lane change, you know, the old-fashioned way, manually. And then when it knows, when it detects that you're in the next lane over, it will re-engage automatically. And so it's a pretty neat system. You know, it works pretty well. Can't complain. You know, and bottom line, you know, getting through heavy traffic like this, you know, in a normal car, without lane keeping, or without even, you know, with like a manual transmission car, it's kind of a pain in the butt getting through heavy traffic. Even though generally speaking, we like manual transmission cars. The problem is you're always on and off the clutch. You're always in and out of neutral, stop and go. It's just real aggravating. Especially if traffic is kind of taking off all of a sudden and then slowing down all of a sudden, you know, very abruptly. And it's not quite doing that here. But even so, the lane keeping system makes your life 1,000 times easier. You see our MPGs coming down to something more realistic. You know, at the speeds we're going right now, you know, 25, 30, it's gonna probably settle into like maybe the low 20s for the gas mileage. Low or maybe mid 20s for gas mileage. But we have never seen the EPA 24 MPGs, city or highway, over any sustained amount of time. You know, unless you were, like one time we were going downhill through the Virgin River Gorge for like 10 or 15 miles. And yeah, obviously that returned really good MPGs because we were going downhill and basically coasting the entire time. But here, you know, it'll probably settle at like, I don't know, 21, 20, something like that. And over about a week or so of driving in San Diego, over the last 7 or 8 days, actually close to 10 days now, we did maybe 800 miles, and it gave us an MPG rating of like 20 or maybe 19.5, something like that. And again, that's not the EPA rating, not even close, but we can't complain. It's a big truck. You know, you're driving, especially in San Diego, you're going up and down steep hills. You know, when you're on the downhills, you're riding the brakes the entire time, and you're not, you know, capturing a lot of electricity because of how small the battery is. And then when you're going uphill, you're using a ton of gas, and the traffic is pretty cutthroat in San Diego. There's a lot of people cutting you off. You're always having to get on the brakes, always having to, be on the gas. It's not the easiest thing. I mean, it's not like LA traffic, which is a whole nother level, or like New York or Boston, Mass. But it's big city traffic, and so it puts a lot of strain on your drivetrain and your nerves. But we can't complain. It's not the 24 that's advertised, but it's a lot better than it would be if it didn't have a hybrid system. And it's very, very well integrated. Everything works together smoothly. The engine cuts on and off by itself. Half the time you don't even notice whether it's on or off. The electric assist, you don't notice when you're on the brakes how much is electric braking and how much is like mechanical braking, friction braking. It just all kind of handles it. So very well done as a complete package. MPGs are still pretty good. Your mileage really is in large part a reflection on how many electric miles versus how many total miles you do. And electric miles just means, is the engine off or not? If the engine's off, whether you're coasting or accelerating or doing nothing, regen braking, just coasting, whatever, with the engine off, it considers that to be an electric mile. And so electric miles is just a fraction of your total miles that the car is driven that are driven with the engine off. And obviously, as you might imagine, the more electric miles you do as a fraction of your total miles, the better your MPGs are going to be. It's just stretching out that energy that you get from the gasoline and making it take you farther. And it says we got another 4 minutes of a delay. So here we have a case where the traffic's starting to speed up a little bit, and now it's into the 40s. And then it's going to slow down again. And it's slowing down pretty abruptly. So we actually got on the brakes before the truck did. Because the truck is sometimes a little bit late to catch on to the fact that traffic is slowing down up ahead. And the longer it waits to start braking, you see we only had 70% energy returned. If it waited even longer, you'd return even less energy. The longer the truck waits to get on the brakes, the less energy it can capture with the electric motor. And so the more like gas you're going to burn, if that makes any sense. So look at our MPGs now, down to 32, 31, and falling, because the speeds are creeping up a little bit, and we're going slightly uphill. And now we're down to 30. So to the average Californian, they spend like an hour a day each way in traffic like this. If you're in the Bay Area, if you're in LA, some parts of San Diego, although it's not too bad there. But like Bay Area traffic and LA traffic is horrendous. And you could spend an hour each way every single day in traffic like this, which is unimaginable to us. We live in Michigan. We drive 15 minutes to work. There's not a lot of traffic. But if you're going through that, if you're living like that, a vehicle like this is not a bad way to go, assuming you need it as a truck. If you need it to do truck stuff like towing your boat, towing a camper, towing, a utility trailer or whatever, or actually filling the bed up with cargo, that's the reason you buy a truck. You don't buy it because you want to look good in it, or jack it up, put on 24-inch rims, big tires, all that kind of thing, light bar. You don't need any of that. The whole point to buy a truck is to actually do truck stuff with it. But if you're going to have a truck and you want to commute in it, this is not a bad way to go. Again, keeping in mind we've been working our way through traffic for the last, you see it says 14 minutes there on the timer. That's how long you've been driving on this trip. and it's been stop and go, and our MPGs are just now getting down under 30. You know, in a normal truck, our MPGs never would have gotten to 30. So take that for what it's worth. We'll end the video now, but but you'll see. If we kept it going longer, the miles would just keep on dropping slowly. And eventually we get down to probably 22 or 21, 20, depending on the speeds involved. But the lane keeping system, once you get used to it, it's kind of hard to imagine living without it and having to fight your way through heavy traffic or take long road trips. And then the hybrid system is nice because of the fact that it saves you a decent amount of gas in traffic like this, and because of the fact that it can do all the other things. It's got the Pro power on board with 7.2 kilowatts of power. Here, we'll let this guy in. No, he doesn't want to come in. That's fine. And that's almost the entire reason to get the hybrid. If you get good mileage as well, that's just a bonus. Don't count on it, but if you get it, that's great. Anyway, again, a few observations driving through heavy Southern California traffic on a beautiful Sunday afternoon. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you later.